Hentai is no doubt one of the most popular genres of porn, if not the most popular as of 2022, with it being the most searched term in the hub in 2021. It's really no surprise when you consider the fact that hentai offers more visual stimulation in terms of movements, angles, colors, and facial expressions. And because it's not real, it can go a lot further with less constraints to reality. But the most important question is, has hentai affected society, and especially young men, in a positive way or a negative way? This is the dark side of hentai. And spoilers, as someone who has watched hentai for years, I think it's the former. But before we get into all of that, let's learn a little bit about the history of hentai. Before we had all the amazing tentacle that we enjoy today, there were shunga, which were Japanese erotic art, which is dated back all the way to the year 704 AD. These were especially popular because they depicted sex acts, and this was in a time where sex was considered taboo to talk about. However, as time went on and it became more and more popular, the shogun came in and started handing out harsh penalties to anybody who published these shunga. It became so bad that all the books had to be personally approved by the city commissioner. And after this reform, it pretty much killed the market for shunga, and that was the end of that. Fast forward to the 19th century, and again, the Japanese government enforced heavy censorship to Western ideas and culture, political writings, and you guessed it, pornography. These were heavy penalties too for violating these laws. You could be fined 2,500,000 yen, which is around $18,000. Keep in mind, that's without taking into account inflation. The actual worth of that fine is worth over 630,000 US dollars. Just imagine being fined 600 grand for reading Metamorphosis. Honestly, you'd probably rather be fined 600 grand than to read that. Censorship laws throughout the 1900s only got worse and worse from there. Death penalties, approval from the emperor himself. It was bad, okay? Until the year 1945, when the emperor Hirohito announced that Japan would surrender in the Pacific War. And after the surrender of Japan, the supreme commander of all allied nations, General MacDoug Latt, abolished all forms of censorship and established freedom of speech. And this meant that Japan's porn industry was back in action, baby. Bigger and badder than before. There were still restrictions, but it was nowhere near as bad as it was before. And in 1969, fitting for the year, the first of what we now know as erotic manga, or doujinshi, was released. Cybele was a hentai manga by Azuma Hideo, I probably butchered that shifted the Japanese pornography market forever. And with the technological boom in the 1980s with computers, video game consoles, and television, someone thought it would be a smart idea to create an erotic anime. And in 1984, we got just that. The Lolita anime series was the first hentai ever released. It consisted of 6 episodes, which depicted hentai scenes with Yuri and BDSM, all with lolly character. And for those of you who don't know, lolly refers to like a prepubescent and childlike girl. It's kind of interesting and disturbing knowing that the first hentai was based around lollies, and something we'll come back to later. As I said earlier, there are still restrictions on the porn industry, and in order to profit legally on these works, you have to pass the very vague censorship laws, which states that you cannot publish obscene materials, whatever that means. And this was when a very clever man, Toshiya Madea, again probably butchered that, thought of the genius idea to create hentai with the use of monsters, and thus was born tentacle hentai. That's right, censorship laws are the reason why hentai features robots, monsters, animals, tentacles, all of that, with the reason being that the genitalia looks very different from the human genitalia. These were some of the first successful hentai and laid the pathway to what hentai is currently in 2022. Now that we know the history of hentai, it's very easy to see why this genre of porn is so popular, being so detached from reality. I mean, it's just erotic cartoons that people choose to masturbate to. There's no harm in that, right? But hentai might not be so harmless as you think. This is where we get to the dark side of hentai. You see, I believe that hentai is creating sexually perverse men. An example of this sexual perversion is lolicons. A lolicon is the sexual attraction to prepubescent girls in anime. What exactly does that sound like to you? Hentai is a gold mine for people who are attracted to little kids. And I mean, it's no surprise when the literal foundation of hentai, the first hentai, was based around lollies, which is literally CP. Sexualizing underage children is one of the things that is so normalized in the anime community, which is why I believe that it unfortunately not only caters and harbors to existing pedophiles, but it also creates pedophiles. You don't believe me? Just to give you an idea of how big it is in the community, a game called Genshin Impact, which is a very popular gacha game where you pull for hot anime waifus, has an NSFW Reddit page for sharing the Genshin sauce, if you know what I mean. In this Reddit forum, they made a poll on whether to ban 2 lolly characters that are in Genshin Impact from hentai being created of them. And the results of this poll were shocking. 3,800 people, almost 4,000 people voted no, stating that they were just drawings and pedophiles are attracted to real children. And yeah, that somehow justifies literal CP. I think you all get the point. I probably shouldn't talk about this more in the video. Also, I'm pretty sure I just got put on a watch list for trying to research this, so make sure you hit the like and subscribe button just in case your boy gets raided. At least it was worth it. That was one of the many fetishes explored in hentai, which is simply not possible to explore in reality. So you might ask the question then, well, why is hentai worse than any other porn genre, and why does it create sexual perversion? Well, to answer this question, we have to explore something called the collage effect. The collage effect can be described as a sort of sexual novelty, where as men, we start to build tolerance and boredom with the same person or stimulus. This is the reason why we seek out new or different genres of porn and also women. If this effect didn't exist, we would not have the biological incentive to search out new porn videos. And this is where the collage effect can become a very dangerous thing. Because we're constantly searching for new stimulation from porn, this can lead us to consuming and exploring very perverse fetishes. A study showed that hentai users often preferred to consume hentai for seeking excitement compared to human pornography. And when you combine the collage effect with porn that has no bounds to reality such as hentai, and the fact that within the hentai and anime community child sexualization is normalized, well, I'm sure you can see how this can lead to some developments of some very perverse fetishes far detached from reality. You should be aware of what you're consuming and how it's affecting you, and I do believe that hentai and just porn in general has had a negative overall effect on society. But unfortunately, you never hear major media outlets talking down about this industry worth hundreds of billions of dollars. If you're interested, I also have a video on my personal experience with hentai and how it's affected me, so you should definitely check that out. My name's Nori. I teach self-improvement through anime. Clearly you're interested in that, so hit the subscribe and notification bell down below. Believe in me who believes in you. Nori, signing out.
Well, I was actually coming out here to pick up a cupcake.